Maloni, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suisuiki. Coming up, Samoa locals are still yet to receive any compensation from the Manawanui disaster. Also, Fiji lawyers push back on a bill, and the people of Atafu and Tokelau are working hard on self-reliance. More than a year after a New Zealand Navy vessel crashed into a reef off the south coast of Samoa's island of Upolu, affected communities have yet to see $1 in compensation. That's despite the New Zealand government making a 10 million tala payment over the disaster to the Samoa government in May, equivalent to about 6 million New Zealand dollars. Locals on Upolu's south coast remain concerned over the payment, while the wreckage now lying on the reef continues to cause problems. Tiwila Fortai reports.
In the village of Tawhitoala, locals watched the HMNZS Manawanui crash and burn less than 2 kilometres from their homes. They say repercussions are continuing. The clean-up crew and New Zealand Navy personnel are long gone, but village matai Whangai Lesau Afaso Junior Saleupu says things are far from normal.
So many sea resources we were relying on for food, not only for food, but for selling to get money. It's all gone, all gone. We don't know why. And that's the only thing we are thinking of. It's because since the Manawanui grounding and all these issues start coming up.
Initially, a 5-kilometre precautionary zone was placed around the wreck of the Manawanui, which prevented locals from fishing and using the waters in front of their homes. After 5 months, the no-go zone was reduced to 2 kilometres, which remains in place. Locals are back in the ocean, but Whangai Lesau says a lot of sea life, including seasonal fish usually sold in the district's roadside stalls, are missing.
There's a inganga always coming in a season, the lupo, the sea, we don't find any sea again. The ngau, we have a lot of ngau every month, but now since the Manawanui grounding, no more ngau. We can't find any ngau again. But that's the other source of income for us.
Documents released to RNZ Pacific under the Official Information Act show the 10 million tala compensation payment was requested by Samoa's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Former Samoa Prime Minister Fiame Naomi Mataafa made the formal request for the money to New Zealand's Foreign Affairs Minister Winston Peters in May. He agreed, and according to the documents, the letters between the leaders facilitated the immediate payment of the 10 million tala. 7 months later, South Coast locals are unsure what's happening with the money. Whangai Lesau says it's not good enough.
That money is from the government of New Zealand for our village. The money is the compensation for Safata. So they should distribute the money now for the district, for us. We already give our request to the government.
But not everyone has lost faith in the process. Atanoa Tusi Whaafetai, the paramount chief from the neighbouring village of Maninoa in the district of Siumu, believes compensation is delayed due to a change in government. La'auli Alemaliatoa Polata Ivao Schmidt took over from Fiame in September.
We know that we're supposed to be compensated and we are expecting payment. But because of the new administration, new government, I think they are trying to make sure that they iron up all the details from the previous administrations and the New Zealand government to get some understanding of how the funds being released.
Atanoa doesn't believe the New Zealand government has paid enough for the damage caused by the HMNZS Manawanui running aground and now lying on the Tawhitoala reef.
But if they cannot remove the vessel, they have to compensate for the vessel's displacement here in our ocean side. And also the fishery losses, the sustenance, because people depend on consuming the fish and the marine life for our people. Tourism losses.
New Zealand Foreign Affairs Minister Winston Peters had no comment following the release of his correspondence about the 10 million tala compensation. La'auli has not yet responded to requests for comment, And there's been no response from the Chief Executive of Samoa's Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, which is leading the compensation process.
Fijian lawyers and civil society are pushing back on a bill that would create a legal framework for popular votes. The bill appears to completely crack down on most campaigning activities during a referendum, leading some to call it authoritarian. Kaya Selby has more.
It's a requirement under Fijian law that any amendment to the constitution must go to the people, and the government may be gearing up for a number of reforms in the near future. With this bill, they'll be able to control how those referenda take place. For the legal community and for civil society, that's raising some major alarm bells. Nailini Singh from the Fijian Women's Crisis Centre even calls it authoritarian.
Well, we have to raise our voices around what we see as against our fundamental rights and freedoms, and these two clauses are of concern.
Based on its current wording, 2 clauses of the bill would appear to completely crack down on most campaigning activities during a referendum period. Section 22 bans the use of badges, symbols, or any other visual materials before, during, or after a referendum. Meanwhile, Section 23 effectively makes it a criminal offence to bring anybody out to vote, carrying a possible 1-year jail sentence. Mrs. Singh says these restrictions will disproportionately impact marginalised groups, including young people and women who rely on grassroots organising to get their message out.
We have an audience of public or society in Fiji that thrives on discussion and talanoa and very visual people, and our geography such that we have rural maritime areas. How are we going to control this? And if we do, then these clauses are very draconian in our opinion.
For prominent Fiji lawyer Richard Naidu, the bill appears rushed through and the wording clumsy.
The drafting is just a bit careless, and I think the intent was probably to restrict that sort of discussion and debate to a blackout period, because in Fiji, during elections, we have a 24 or 48-hour blackout period in which people cannot campaign. So I'm just wondering if those restrictions were actually intended for something like that.
Fellow lawyer Janet Mason says it could mean the government becomes the only source of information during a referendum campaign.
Obviously, they don't want anybody to embark on a kind of campaign of misinformation. Who's going to put out the material? Is the government going to put out its own material, and isn't that just blatant propaganda?
But the Fijian government says the bill merely seeks to balance responsible speech with the orderly conduct of elections. They say similar provisions exist in other jurisdictions and are already reflected within Fiji's currently existing electoral laws. The national referendum bill will go through to its committee stage when Parliament resumes next year.
In New Zealand, the treaty settlement process of Aotearoa's largest iwi remains stalled, but the return of one of the country's most significant pā sites offers a glimmer of hope for the future. Peter de Graaf reports from Kirikiri.
To the untrained eye, it looks like a modest hill across the water from the stone store. Yet, these grassy terraces overlooking Kerikeri Basin once witnessed some of New Zealand's most formative events. And now, this pā is set to reclaim its place in history. The land is currently managed by the Department of Conservation, but a bill due for its third reading in Parliament tomorrow will return Kororipo Pā to Ngāpuhi. Te Runanga o Ngāti Rehia Chairman Kipper Munro says the pā is associated with one ancestor in particular.
Kororipo Pā, of course, is synonymous with our tupuna Hongi Hika. And I suppose its significance in a historical way is that the musket wars, they're attributed to not only Hongi but that pā site. Kororipo was a place that they departed from.
Later, it became a place where chiefs would gather.
In more recent times, it became a meeting place of important matters relating to our people of Ngāpuhi. So it became more of a wānanga place where the likes of Hone Heke used it to report back to his people.
Mr Munro says the pā also provided protection to New Zealand's first European settlement, built at Hongi Hika's invitation, directly across the water. From his hilltop pā, the chief could keep an eye on the new arrivals from the Christian Missionary Society. It was the first time the two peoples had lived side by side.
Down where the stone store and the mission house was situated is where the sea and the fresh water come together. And so it's been a liken to that, the coming together of the first Europeans and Māori.
Kororipo means swirling waters, an apt metaphor for the changes that began at Kerikeri Basin just over 200 years ago. Bill Edwards, Heritage New Zealand's Northland manager, says the first formal contact between Māori and the British Crown can be traced to Kororipo Pā. In 1831, a gathering of 13 rangatira penned a letter to King William IV, raising concerns about the intentions of the French Navy and the behaviour of British subjects.
It's nationally significant because it's a meeting place. It's a place where not only different hapu met, but it's also a meeting place of Māori and Pākehā. But importantly, it's also that letter to the King in 1831, which was really the beginning of what we see as now modern Aotearoa New Zealand.
Kipper Munro says the push to have Kororipo returned started 20 years ago at Whitiora Marae. The hui resolved to seek the Pā's return to Ngāpuhi, with Hapu Ngāti Rehia as the kaitiaki, or caretakers.
Our thinking was that whilst we wait for that full and final settlement, we asked the government at that time, let's have a look at a significant site in Ngāpuhi. It was a mark of good faith on both our sides that let's proceed and try and get that back. This is a good start.
Mr Munro says there are conditions attached to the site's return, but Ngāpuhi can revisit those later as part of its final settlement. He expects the return will be charged with emotion.
A lot of these places have been lost to us for so long, it's almost that the Pā site has suddenly come alive again. It'll be quite an emotional day, certainly for those that have been on this pathway for its return.
He says it will also be a chance to remember those who fought for the Pā's return.
20 years later, a lot of those kaumātua and leaders of Ngāpuhi are no longer with us anymore. And so it's significant that their moe moe, their dreams and aspirations are nearly there. So a job that was given to us, we can say we've done that on their behalf.
Bill Edwards' response to the return is unequivocal.
Utterly fantastic, and it's about time.
The Kororipo Pā vesting bill is due to become law on December the 17th, with the handover ceremony expected to take place early next year.
Building self-reliance remains the big focus for the people of Tokelau's Atafu atoll. Atafu recently released its first annual report, which its leader describes as an honest stocktake about where the atoll is at in its long journey of self-determination. Whaipule Kelehiano Kalolo had a chat with Johnny Blades, who asked him what are the biggest challenges facing Atafu.
The biggest three challenges for Atafu and probably Tokelau as well are first, financial discipline and overspend. We'd like to tighten up our financial systems so we can live within our means while it's still investing in schools, health, and basic services. The second one is the critical infrastructure risk. The sea cable crisis showed how one weak point can paralyze an entire atoll. Number three is human capacity. It's one of the biggest challenges. We have a very small pool of skilled people carrying out too many responsibilities at both village and national levels.
I mean, you're one of three atolls. Is there often a tension between local and national?
I would say there are times when we don't miscommunicate, and sometimes there is always a delay in exchanging reports, and it contributes to these delays and misunderstandings. The many national weaknesses are felt hardest on Atafu. For example, the cable break shipping delays, financial reporting problems, and that is why Atafu is pushing so hard for reform and self-reliance inside the national system.
What's being done to address the situation with the cable? Is Atafu still, relying on a backup satellite system?
That's correct. Atafu is still relying on backup from the internet. And yes, there was a discussion in General Fono. They come up with a sum of 3-point-something million to repair the damage. When the fault was discovered a long time ago, it was up in 100,000 repair work. But it ended up, they keep delaying, and that's why we're suffering. Atafu as victim of system failure. Decisions and delays took place at national level and at Nukunonu and outside Atafu's control or say. But social and economic pain, like the schools, health, and government services, private business, family connections, have fallen on hard times on Atafu. What is being done now? A full undersea repair has been scoped, costing up to about 3.7 million, and the government is working with New Zealand and partners to secure funding and a cable ship. We are pushing for stronger maintenance schedules, risk registers, and clear lines of responsibility, so this must not be repeated. Every extra month of satellite is money not going to education, health, and village development.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā soifua.